Vinweek is a competition hosted by RebelLUG in which builders must build one vignette a day for an entire week. This is the first time I had gotten involved with RebelLUG, and I'm really happy I did. I was able to produce some of my best work in that week that I decided to just take off work and focus entirely on building vignettes. And over the course of that week, I probably stretched the definition of what a vignette actually is, but I still had a lot of fun with the stuff I made. I was forced to build all these themes I had never built before, under time pressure I was definitely not used to. I went into Vinweek wanting to make only Harry Potter builds for RebelLUG, which was a hot take amidst all the Star Wars fans, and it ended up not working out anyway. Each day a different prompt is given, and it became a little difficult to bend Harry Potter to some of those prompts. But the first one was layer, and it was immediately clear to me that I wanted to build Aragog's burrow. I still think, even though this was only my first build of the week, it was definitely one of my strongest. My favorite usage of parts is the 8 stud launchers that can be found on Aragog's leg. It creates a really unique angle with the bar that extrudes from it. It's not 90 degrees, it's more like 100, 110 degrees. Also, the mushrooms are another favorite part of this build. Last year, the size restrictions were 32 by 32. It's good to have size restrictions. It forces you to think creatively. How much detail can you cram in such a small space? One of the other prompts for Vinweek was pirates, and I have never built anything pirate related before. In fact, I have very few pirate sets. I love the theme. I wish they would bring it back, like Imperial flagship style. Barracuda Bay is definitely a step in the right direction. I would love to see more sets like that. My favorite thing about this mock was building this little pirate ship. So this pirate ship is actually, if I recall correctly, very illegal. It's almost legal. Everything is not quite fully connected, but you can kind of get an idea of the structure that's going on down there. And then there's just these side panels. The ship is relatively sturdy, even though the studs aren't fully pressed together. It's very, very close. There you go. Maybe you can see the slight bowing out on the sides. Yeah, this was two things I didn't do a whole lot of. I don't build a lot of microscale builds, and I've never built pirates before. The ship turned out great. The terrain on my island, we're not gonna talk about that. It's fine. I feel like a pirate set would not be complete without some sort of skull. This was perhaps the biggest challenge of a build like this. I don't know how long this took, but I'm guessing this took 3 hours of my 24-hour build time. This did not take 24 hours to build. I did actually sleep during Vinweek, believe it or not. But I went through so many iterations of this, and ultimately this is what came out, and it's very solid. Nothing's going to fall off of this. I'll have to put some directions for how to make this, because I think it's pretty effective. Vinweek was a blur because so much building happened so fast. Kind of reminds me of Lego Masters, which you should watch. That's not my last Lego Masters plug. For realsies though, there's a lot of awesome people on Lego Masters and you should watch it. With this, I adhered pretty closely to what a vignette is. We have the typical black border and then the small scene, very well framed within it. When photographing this build, I actually took it outside around golden hour. It was the softest lighting I've ever managed to get on a build. I got this great comment from one of my competitors in the challenge. He's like, "You made that digitally, remove it now." And I was absolutely flattered that my lighting was so good. He thought I had rendered this up in like Cinema 4D, but no, I'm sorry dude, this is very much real. Even though it was not my strongest Vinweek build, I think it was really, really fun that I was able to put this together and explore the theme of pirates, something I would love to return to, probably at minifigure scale, but also exploring microscale as well and seeing like what you can do with a lot of smaller bricks. Perhaps my favorite Vinweek build is Overpass. I've always wanted to do a post-apocalyptic scene, and Vinweek finally gave me the opportunity, or rather forced me to do it. And this is the result. There's not a lot of crazy techniques on display here. This build really boils down to the way it's laid out. The first decision I made is I want to have a bridge in this, a falling apart bridge. I remember a similar image in an old book I used to have as a kid about earthquakes, and it showed a collapsed bridge like this, and it had all the wire sticking out one end, kind of peeling off into the void. And I really wanted to recreate that effect. And so I did have a lot of this old gray flex tube, a lot of it primarily from the original 2002 wave of Harry Potter and the Aragog and the Forbidden Forest set. These were attached to web pieces that would collapse on Harry and Ron. This is one of those rare situations where color errors on Lego's part actually helped me tremendously. As you can see, almost none of the dark red remains any sort of consistent color. They're almost all different shades. It looks so great for brickwork. So I decided to spend literally hours piling up every 1x2 dark red plate. When I say every 1x2 dark red plate, I had no 1x2 dark red plates after building this. And so they stacked them all up to create this realistic brick look. There's some dark brown tied in there, lots of different textures. Again, it's a really simple technique. Anybody can do it as long as you have a lot of 1x2 dark red plates, which fortunately I did find at the pick-a-brick wall. That's why I had so many. That's really about it for this build. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. And I think I'm actually gonna have a really hard time saying goodbye to this build. And I might not. I might keep this one around for a while. The theme was space. And I am not a space builder, but I wanted to pretend that I was. And in order to fake pretending that I was a space builder, I knew I had to build something very big. See, while there was a 32x32 width restriction, there was no height restriction. The only thing holding me back was time. So this building was definitely the build that took the longest throughout the competition. I think I spent a total 16 hours building this, and probably another 3 in Photoshop cleaning up the many edges on this build. Despite the appearance of it just floating in space, the picture gives off, it can actually stand on its own, though it does not make me comfortable doing so. It is just balanced on these 3 little legs that I made for it. There's actually no stud connection to the base, which happens. I had actually had an idea like this sitting in the back of my mind for a while. A space station comprised of colorful, very distinct modules all kind of slammed together. My original idea was to build it on an asteroid, but terrain takes way too long. It's so much easier to build structure, especially when this is a very timed competition. You have a day to make these builds, put it into Photoshop, and then ideally you sleep because you have to do the whole thing again the next day. This is definitely a build that bends the definition of what is and what is not a vignette. Looking at it now, I definitely would not call this a vignette. I tried to capture a little scene on the front. This is called Spacewalk at Outpost 31, and we've got our 2 astronauts out front creating this scene. In terms of other vignette-like features, this probably falls a little bit short. I started this build by making this little garage area, and it became a great foundation on which to attach the rest of these modules. From there, I just started experimenting with different colors, different shapes. The first one was the blue, and I found a way to attach that onto the base, and it kind of just kept building up from there. Greebles is what this is all about. Greebles, of course, are these lovely, just chaos detailing. The greebles don't necessarily mean anything. Like this doesn't serve any particular purpose, but it looks very sci-fi. This build is definitely one that is not finished around the back. And if I can spin this without having it fall over, we can take a look at how ugly it is. So there you are, for those of you who are curious. One of my favorite pieces I used here was this giant beam from the old Exoforce Sentai Fortress. I've never been able to incorporate one of those into a mock, and I finally had a chance to. It's not a particularly strong piece. It's actually bent, I can see, just from being on the build for some reason. It's actually bending out a little bit. So one day maybe we can attach that a little better. Another thing I need to revisit before I take this build anywhere is the attachment to the bottom because it's not too hot right now. Making this in about 16 hours is something I never thought I would have to do. I don't know, I never got sick of building this build. It's so diverse and colorful. It was always interesting to continue placing bricks on this model. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you were able to pick up a few building techniques, and more importantly, I hope to see you participating in Vinweek 2021. In order to do that, all you have to do is join the RebelLUG Discord server. I will leave a link to that down below.